On the 30th of July, 1975, a 62-year-old man made a phone call from a payphone outside a restaurant in Bloomfield Township, Michigan, to tell his wife he had been stood up for a meeting. He said he would be home by 4 o'clock to grill steaks for dinner. He never arrived. His car was found unlocked in the parking lot the next morning. 5 decades and multiple federal excavations later, investigators are still trying to answer one question. Where is he? This is Crime Lore. Every episode, we examine documented missing persons and unexplained disappearance cases from a single state, drawing only from police reports, court records, and verified news coverage. No dramatization, no invented dialogue, and no speculation beyond what investigators themselves have stated on the record. James Riddle Hoffa was born on the 14th of February, 1913, in Indiana. His family relocated to Detroit's West Side when he was approximately 11 years old. He left high school before graduating and went to work at a Kroger grocery warehouse, where he became involved in labor organizing as a teenager, helping coordinate a strike among warehouse workers. Over the following 3 decades, Hoffa rose through the ranks of the Teamsters Union, eventually serving as its president from 1957 to 1967. During that period, the Teamsters became one of the most powerful labor organizations in the country, and Hoffa himself became a nationally recognized and controversial public figure. In 1964, following a lengthy federal investigation into the union's finances and Hoffa's personal conduct, he was convicted of jury tampering, conspiracy, and mail fraud. He began serving a federal prison sentence in 1967. In 1971, President Richard Nixon commuted Hoffa's sentence, but the commutation carried a specific condition. Hoffa was barred from holding any Teamsters leadership position until 1980. By 1975, Hoffa was actively working through legal and political channels to have that restriction lifted so he could reclaim the union presidency from his hand-picked successor, Frank Fitzsimmons. Investigators and journalists who later examined the case widely concluded that this ambition put Hoffa in direct conflict with organized crime figures who had come to prefer Fitzsimmons's more permissive leadership and had no interest in Hoffa's return. On the 26th of July, 1975, Hoffa had dinner with Anthony Tony Jack Giacalone, a reputed Detroit organized crime figure, and Louis Linteau, a friend, former Teamsters local president, and by that point Hoffa's unofficial appointment secretary. During that dinner, Giacalone reportedly arranged a follow-up meeting for the 30th of July at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to be held at the Machus Red Fox restaurant in Bloomfield Township, a location Hoffa knew well, since it had also hosted his son's wedding reception. Hoffa noted the appointment in his personal office calendar, writing the initials of the man he expected to meet along with the time and location. On the morning of the 30th of July, 1975, Hoffa left his Lake Orion home at approximately 1:15 in the afternoon. He first stopped at Linteau's office in Pontiac. Linteau was out to lunch, so Hoffa spoke briefly with staff and left a message before continuing on to the restaurant. He arrived at the Machus Red Fox at around 2 o'clock. Multiple witnesses later told investigators they saw Hoffa standing near his car and pacing the parking lot. 2 men who recognized him stopped to shake his hand and exchange brief greetings. Between 2:15 and 2:30 in the afternoon, an increasingly frustrated Hoffa used a payphone mounted near a hardware store behind the restaurant to call his wife, Josephine. He told her that neither Giacalone nor Anthony Tony Provenzano, a New Jersey labor figure with organized crime ties whom Hoffa had reportedly hoped to reconcile with, had shown up. He said he expected to be home by 4 o'clock to grill steaks for dinner. He also placed a call to Linteau's office, again voicing frustration at being kept waiting. Linteau's staff placed that call at around 3:30 in the afternoon, though the FBI later suspected, based on phone company records, that the actual time was somewhat earlier. Investigators believe Hoffa left the restaurant parking lot sometime between 2:45 and 2:50 in the afternoon. According to the most widely accepted account developed by investigators in the following months, he did not leave alone or on foot. Witness and forensic evidence pointed to a maroon Mercury Marquis Brougham. He was not seen or heard from again. At 7 o'clock the following morning, Hoffa's wife telephoned their adult children to say their father had not come home overnight, which was itself unusual. Linteau drove to the Machus Red Fox and found Hoffa's own car sitting unlocked in the parking lot, with no sign of its owner and no indication of what had happened. Lintow called police, who arrived at the scene, followed shortly afterward by the Michigan State Police and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. That evening, Hoffa's son James filed an official missing person report. The family publicly offered a reward of $200,000 for information leading to his return. Investigators quickly focused their attention on a maroon 1975 Mercury Marquis Brougham, belonging to Joseph Jackalone, son of Anthony Jackalone. Records showed the vehicle had been borrowed that afternoon by Charles Chucky O'Brien, a man Hoffa had effectively raised as a foster son, though their relationship had grown strained in the years before Hoffa's disappearance. O'Brien told investigators he had used the car that day to deliver a large quantity of fish and had later taken it to a car wash to remove blood he said had leaked from the fish onto the back seat. Trained police dogs, given articles of Hoffa's clothing to establish his scent, reportedly indicated a positive reaction to the rear seat area of that same vehicle. On the 8th of August, 1975, the FBI obtained a search warrant for Hoffa's own car and recovered O'Brien's fingerprints on a bottle found beneath the front seat. A federal grand jury convened in Detroit on the 2nd of September, 1975, to examine the case, and more than 200 FBI agents were ultimately assigned to the investigation across Michigan, New Jersey, and at least 4 other states, reflecting the scope of the mob and labor union networks under scrutiny. Despite extensive electronic surveillance of organized crime figures believed to be connected to the case, investigators found that those under suspicion were reluctant to discuss Hoffa's disappearance, even in private, recorded conversations. In December of 1975, a federal investigator testified before a Detroit judge that a witness had identified 3 New Jersey men, all close associates of Provenzano, as participants in Hoffa's abduction and killing, though this testimony did not result in charges. In early 1976, the FBI circulated an internal summary of the investigation's findings, and leading suspects, later publicly referred to as the Hoffex memo, which named several reputed organized crime figures as persons of interest. No criminal charges were ever filed against any individual in connection with Hoffa's disappearance. Over the following decades, the case generated a series of informant claims and public confessions that prompted repeated physical searches, none of which produced confirmed remains. These included the floorboards of a Detroit house connected to a claimed confession from organized crime associate Frank Sheeran, which the FBI crime lab ultimately determined did not contain Hoffa's blood, a horse farm in Oakland County's Milford Township, searched based on a mob hitman's account, a field in Oakland Township tied to a reputed Detroit organized crime boss, investigated after another informant's tip in 2013, and a suburban driveway in Roseville, Michigan, examined by Michigan State University forensic anthropologists in 2012 after a resident reported having witnessed a burial there around the time of Hoffa's disappearance. Additional theories over the years, none independently confirmed by investigators, have placed Hoffa's remains everywhere from the Florida Everglades to a New Jersey sports stadium. Law enforcement officials have generally treated these accounts as unverified. Hoffa was declared legally dead in 1982, 7 years after his disappearance. His case remains officially unsolved. No individual has ever been criminally charged with his murder or disappearance, and his remains have never been recovered despite dozens of searches spanning half a century. Investigators, journalists, and independent researchers continue to propose competing theories about the specific location of his remains and the exact identities of those responsible. But as of this recording, the case file remains formally open with the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Michigan State Police. It is widely regarded as one of the most extensively investigated unsolved disappearances in American law enforcement history, and every anniversary of his disappearance continues to generate renewed public and investigative attention.